Right, we're here at Warrington Town Hall again for our annual Christmas interview with Chief Executive, Professor Stephen Broomhead. I've lost count of how many years we've been doing this, Stephen.
20 years, Gary.
20?
I think so.
Wow, time flies when you're having fun. Well, it's been quite a difficult year again, not just for the council but for people in general with the cost of living crisis after the COVID pandemic. And you know, we're sat here now looking outside and there's grey skies over Warrington. We've just come out the back of a near 3-month bin strike, which as far as I can remember is pretty unprecedented in the time I've been covering the news in Warrington, which is now more than 4 decades. So, you know, we had the unions saying the council would dither and delay, and so what was happening?
Well, first of all, the bin strike, which was very disruptive to the public and to businesses, shouldn't overshadow all the other things that have been very positive in the year, which you're never going to talk about, Gary. There was no dither and delay from the council. In actual fact, the Unite, the union, whose members were taking action, those are the ones actually who did it and delayed. They've never ever been to an internal meeting of the council, and we pointed that out to them really. So it's been very, very difficult.
So why did they keep saying that you wouldn't meet with them?
We did meet with them, but they kept saying that. And obviously, you know, there's a war of words that goes on, Gary, but you know, we were very keen from the get-go on this, to get this dispute settled, which we did in the end.
Well, you say it's settled, and you said there's no additional cost to the council, but the public are struggling to understand how there can be no additional cost.
Well, of course there are additional costs to the council because we had highway management issues, we had 2 temporary community recycling sites, and a whole series of other costs that resulted from this dispute. But the dispute has now been settled, and we gave no additional lump sum payment to the Unite members to settle the strike, and they've been back at work now for nearly 2 weeks, and it will take some time for the service to settle down. It's a great pity actually what happened, because our bin services over the years has been a really good and reliable service. The green waste collections will recommence very soon. Actually today there's an announcement saying they'll be starting in the new year. There'll be 2 additional collections for this year's subscriptions, and then during January we'll decide what we do about next year's service and the cost of it.
So what do you say to the people who are calling for refunds on the bin collection services that they weren't having, and the expense they've had to go to get rid of the waste?
There won't be any refunds, but we will reflect the issues and the disruption that people have had with their green waste in next year's charges.
So I've heard that disgruntled rumblings coming from the town hall, from other employees, other union members of other unions. I mean, is it a happy ship now, or are there still problems to be resolved?
It's a happy ship, you know. We've just had a staff survey of all of our staff, not just the people who work on the street scene and the waste. That says 89% of people working here value working for the council, would recommend it to other people. So it's not a case of a disgruntled workforce. Yeah, it's a great pity what happened with the waste dispute. I wish it had not happened. As a person who's worked in this town now, Gary, for 30 years, I was ashamed when I walked through the streets and what I saw really. Yeah. But we've moved to settle it. We've done to clean up as quickly as we can, and I repeat, I'm really sorry for the disruption and difficulties that people have had in the last few months.
I mean, because we had a change of leadership during the bin strike, and there were quite a few raised eyebrows when Friday morning Hans Mundry, the new leader of the council, who's a member of the Unite Union, says his top priority is to resolve the bin strike, and within 6 hours it's resolved.
Yeah, well, Hans and I worked together on this, and the fact that Hans is in Unite as a union is irrelevant. There was no issue and no pressure as a result of that to settle it earlier. It came to a settlement because Unite went with the package that we put to them for their members. And now we're in a period of wanting to rebuild relationships with the other trade unions. There are a number of trade unions in this organisation, and we want to make sure we've got good, cooperative and responsible relationships with all of our trade unions.
So did the refuse collectors get what they wanted and were demanded at the beginning of the strike, or was there some compromise?
They'd probably say they didn't get what they wanted, but there was always a compromise. But from my point of view, I wanted to make sure this dispute was ended as quickly as we could possibly do so.
Yeah. Well, like you say, it was a sorry state of affairs, and let's hope we never go there again.
It was. I mean, there's also a lot of learning lessons from it, and we want to take these things away and learn for the future. This council never had a dispute for years and years and years and years.
Like I said, it was unprecedented.
Yeah, Gary, you've followed the fortunes of the council for years, so that's why it was very, very difficult.
Yeah. I mean, but it did deflect some of the other issues, which are normally the hot topics in the town, which we'll go on to now. I mean, the council debt. I mean, unfortunately, around 1.8 billion the last time I looked at it. I don't know if that's changed at all, whether it's coming down, going up. You've got the problem with the economy at the moment, where things you've invested in are perhaps losing value. The council's hitting the national headlines again for potential losses on property portfolios in Birmingham of getting on for nearly £10 million. I mean, it does look tough times out there still.
Gary, they're all headlines, and a lot of what you just said is completely wrong. I mean, the council doesn't...
But people only read headlines, unfortunately.
Yeah, Gary, but you're wrong. The council does not run the national economy. And some of the issues around property values, including my house, your house, or any commercial investment, is affected by national economic issues. Yes, some of the properties we've invested in have fallen slightly in their value. Yeah, that is true. But as regarding losing a lot of money through our investments, it's investments and borrowings, not debt, Gary. That's what we're talking about. That's just simply not true.
Well, it's referred to as debt in the national press when they're talking about it.
In the national press, but from a financial point of view and from a commercial investment point of view, it is not debt, it's about borrowings against the assets.
So we have the situation where the government are writing to you saying they've got serious concerns about the amount of debt they've called it debt.
The government commissioned CITFA to carry out a review and a report. The sent us a drafted report. We're completely happy with the report's content and its findings, and indeed we've just recently sent back to government a draft action plan of what we intend to do. We take these things very, very seriously, but the letter that came from the minister was a complete odds with the content of what was in the report. It perhaps suits government as a Labour-run council to have a go at us for what we're trying to do in terms of our investments and return. Those returns are £22 million a year, which pay for the services to support frontline services. If somebody would like to send me a note about how they would actually provide those services without that £22 million, I'd be very pleased to meet them to discuss it.
So is there likely to be any government intervention?
I don't know.
Right. So that's not been resolved.
No, I don't know. I mean, obviously we talk to the officials on a regular basis. We are in constructive dialogue with them. There has been intervention elsewhere in places like Birmingham, in Slough, in Nottingham. Every day you hear of a council threatening to or issuing a 114 notice, which means effectively they are bankrupt. They can only spend on essential services. This council is not one of those councils.
So you've no fear of any bankruptcy issues at Warrington?
Not at all.
So what's the situation now with the council and the council annual accounts, which were quite a few years behind at one time? Where are we up to now?
Well, this council's in a long queue. There's a large pack of other councils. The council not been signed off. In fact, I would say it's a national disgrace, the fact that what's been allowed to happen, that so many councils across the land, the council have not been signed off. So our 18-19 accounts will be signed off very, very soon, i.e. in the new year. And then there's going to be a general catch-up. But we are, as I say, we're not an outlier. There's nothing special about Warrington. Many other councils are now facing, I think it's 90% of councils have at least 3 years accounts outstanding. Why is this? Because there are not capacity in the system, or it's just not been planned in the right way.
So everything's in hand as best it can be.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you've asked me this for years, Gary. It's not because there's a problem with the accounts. There was a public objection to the accounts, which was, people have the right to object. That took some time.
But took a lot of time.
A lot of time, yeah, and
a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money, yes. But people have the right to object. I'm confident those accounts will catch up. But government need to put some additional resource in to allow that catch-up to take place.
I mean, are there still any new objections into any of the accounts or that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of.
Right, okay. We already touched about it, the new leader of the council, Hannah's Mundry. Were you surprised when Russ and Cathy suddenly announced they were standing down?
Well, I don't choose my own parents in this job, Gary, do I? So, to a degree, yes and no, really. I mean, it was a challenging period being the leader and the deputy. We all know that Russ had a particularly exacting period of office particularly in the last year. And so their decision was reached in a proper way, and they were given, notice was given for the change to take place. So that was a seamless change. The Labour group decided to have a new group leader, and Hans has been a councillor for 29 years, very experienced councillor. Decided to keep his role for transportation. Janet Henshaw, a more relatively new member of the council, and so life continues here, Gary. And of course we're heading now towards the all-out elections in May. I know that all political parties here, the three main political parties, are all working hard to develop their campaigns, and doubtless you'll be covering a lot of that in the new year.
So you're happy with the new leadership team, but the way you'll be able to work with them?
Yeah, very much so.
Like you say, you've known Hans ever since you've been here, haven't you?
Very much so, yeah.
Right, the other thing that's happened recently, the last thing we'll talk about before we talk about some of the positive things for balance that are going on in the town at the moment, because I know it's important to give balance, and sometimes the council probably feel as though they don't get a fair crack at the whip in the media, but here at Warrington Worldwide...
Well, we get the whip, Gary.
Yeah, but here at Warrington Worldwide we do like to give balanced news, and we always like to give the council its right to have its say and respond to things. I know sometimes in the media things just get printed before you even have a chance to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, you have a difficult job, I get that. There's a lot of clickbait stuff that goes on. Warrington Worldwide is what sometimes we've felt, but people have their issues, their concerns, and you have to reflect them. We understand that.
I think I'll trademark Warrington Worldwide now for the future clickbait, but on a serious note, I mean, the local plan was at long last eventually signed off. I mean, that seems to have been going on forever and ever as well, with various reworkings of it, and again, government inspectors intervening and saying they weren't happy, but it's been signed off now, but sadly there will still be some loss of green belt despite all the brownfield site that's going to come on board from Fiddler's Ferry. You're still getting protesters coming and turning out at meetings, and they say the council aren't listening to them.
Well, Gary, it's not possible to satisfy 212,000 people with the local plan, and there's always going to be people who object, and they have the right to object. But the local plan has been determined after 5 years of consultation, public meetings, and people asking for their views, and it was a balanced local plan that the inspector has supported. So yes, there are some challenges around sustainability, issues around green belt and the availability of land for housing and a number of houses and employment sites, but overall it's balanced, and yes, it will move forward.
I mean, planning has always been one of those contentious issues, because the planning officers don't ever seem to have a pattern of agreeing the same things when it's developing in green belt, because people can have a small extension turned down in the green belt, and yet some huge property with development can come forward and be allowed in the green belt.
Well, I don't know, that's fair. You'd have to give me examples of that, but there's always going to be perceptions of unfairness about planning. I do know that, but all planning decisions are reached in a proper way through statutory means and processes, and through legal means as well. So the local plan is not everybody's cup of tea, I understand that, but at least we've got a plan. If we didn't have a plan, developers could just roll into town and start to develop almost anywhere, including on Greenbelt. And it's the first time, actually, I think in 12 years, we've actually got a local plan. I think, that is something to celebrate, perhaps in a small way from my point of view, but we had to have a plan.
Well, let's talk about some of the...
Gary, we've not given in to NIMBYs, NIMBYs are equal as a problem as protesters, and NIMBYs tend to live in better parts of town, and NIMBYs often have a lot to say. We haven't given in to those people.
Well, I'm sure the NIMBYs will be having something to say about that now.
Well, they always do, Gary, and they're always prepared to listen to them as well.
We've talked about some of the issues that have been affecting Warrington, but well, you know, I'm very positive about Warrington when I can be. I love saying what a great town we've got and what a great place it is to live and work, and I'm very passionate about promoting our town as a destination. So let's focus on some of the good stuff that's going on. Town centre regeneration. I've just actually been in the Hive just round the corner from here and seen the work that Neil Trainor's delivering in Warrington Town Centre, and it literally is breathtaking.
Yeah, I mean, you and I, Gary, share the same objective. We want the town to be a better place, an improving place. That's what I'm partly paid to do, aren't I? You know, to make sure the town develops and is a good place to live, work and play. The town centre redevelopment has been a great success, particularly against the background of the economy and the collapse of retail, and we're pleased with the success of the Times Square overall. There are some units to be let, but bit by bit they are being let. There was a worrying moment about the future of Cineworld from a global point of view. That seems to have gone through the worst. Anybody who's ever said to me years ago that people would have their birthday parties or their wedding receptions in the market, I would have asked for a second opinion on them, really. But
I think it helps that the registry office is just round the corner.
It probably does, but you know, the market has been a great
fantastic
success. And as regarding individual developments, such as Palmyra Square, still trading really well, and Neil Trainor's done a great job with the old court building in terms of mixed-use development. So our town centre is doing well, but let's not forget the suburbs as well. The Culcheth and Stockton Heath, and some of the suburbs are also trading quite well, really. And partly that's a result of the strength of our economy in Warrington, but also a little bit of hope about where the council's worked in partnership with businesses and, if I might say, with planning.
I know we're trying to be positive now, and you've mentioned Times Square and how it's filling up nicely, but there are still people out there who are negative about Times Square and saying what costs the council with the council offices there and everything, and they're saying that it's not really making the money it was designed to make.
Well, was it designed to make money, Gary? I don't know whether it is or not, actually. It's about regeneration. It's about adding value. Knowing the cost of everything and the value of nothing is sometimes where some of your readers and seem to come from, really. And so no, it wasn't all about making money. Yes, it costs money, but it would have cost money if we had that stinking market still there, wouldn't it?
Yes, so the market is definitely a big improvement, and Times Square, in my opinion, is good for the town as well.
Thank you.
So another positive, education in the town seems to be getting good reports.
Yeah, well, really good that...
Which, as a former college principal, you must be very proud of that sort of achievement.
Well, I think education's still in the middle of my blood veins, actually, Gary.
Yeah. I mean, Warrington and Vale College, for example, the way that's transformed.
Yeah, it's just doing really well, but just had a report that our educational performance in the whole of the North West is the best of every council in the North West. So that says something about where our teachers, our young people, families and the council all work together to develop a town that has got really good educational performance. We had a skills commission this year that reported on what will be the skills of the future, and we'll be looking to try and influence and change the curriculum both in the schools and the colleges, so that we are producing people who are ready for work and can take on the jobs which perhaps not even been invented yet, Gary. Perhaps in a year's time you won't be sat there, it'll be an AI device that does this, I don't know.
Well, it is threatening how AI is.
Perhaps I'll be replaced by AI.
Well, I have actually tested AI out to write a feature on Warrington Worldwide, and it actually wrote it better than I could. So in 15 seconds. So it is frightening how that is going to change the outlook for employment, particularly in the media world. But you mentioned about the economy doing well locally compared to other areas. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who are feeling the cost of living crisis and running out of money for Christmas who aren't feeling as though the economy is doing that well locally. But
yeah, well, one of the key priorities of the council is to support the vulnerable people and vulnerable communities. I mean, clearly we have an issue of homelessness. There was a conference recently to look at the challenges of homelessness and what some of the solutions might be. And we were close, I think, to declaring a homelessness emergency, given the fact we've almost run out of temporary accommodation. Hotels, we don't really want to use hotels, we're having to do that. Some of the hotels have gone, of course, because three of them have been lost because they're providing homes for asylum seekers.
Well, we could sit and talk about that one all day.
But homelessness is a real challenge for us. And
just on that topic, I mean, has there been any movement or noises about what's going to happen with these hotels, with the asylum seekers in them?
Well, we wanted to offer a warm welcome to Warrington when we knew that the asylum seekers would be using at least 2 of our hotels. The third hotel, we did not support the Home Office using it, and we said so because we felt enough was enough in terms of the scarcity of resources that we have at our disposal, give the right sort of wraparound support for those individuals. But I've not been informed about any closure of the hotels or turning the hotels back to what was their original use.
Right. And one other thing that's happening at the moment, I mean, the Chamber of Commerce, which we both know very well, after all the years it's been at the International Business Centre, is now moving into the base, bringing it closer to the heart of Warrington.
Yeah, Chamber of Commerce has been with us for, I think, over 150 years. Gives a good service to businesses. I'm glad to see it's having a renaissance. I'm glad to see it's moving, actually. I think it's under really good leadership with Steve Fitzsimmons. Supported a very successful business conference this year, which had nearly 300 people, businesses from Warrington, particularly the smaller businesses, actually talking about their aspirations for the future. And if there's one good thing about this town, it's partnership, and it's partnership in action, not partnership of words. And it's really good to see that happening.
Yeah. Finally, the Livewire situation, where the council is now bringing it back in-house. It's been reported that that's going to be at a cost of more than £5 million, when we're already in difficult, stretched financial circumstances. Do you see this as a positive for Warrington, the council taking Livewire back in-house?
Well, what are the alternatives? Do we close down 2 £20 million plus leisure centres? Do we not offer support in places like Birchwood? So unfortunately the government didn't provide any additional support during COVID for our lifestyle and wellbeing organisation, Livewire. There was no support given at all. So we either make closures to libraries, we make closures to the leisure
You don't want
centres.
to go down that route again, do you?
It wasn't my idea to close libraries, Gary. Indeed, I was the person who stopped it, as you well know. We don't want to close any of these facilities because the people of Warrington should be active and well, really. That's why we have these organisations. Yes, there is a cost to bring it back in-house, but it's a cost, and it's an investment. You can look at the money, but look at what the outcomes would be if we didn't have those services.
So is the idea for Livewire to sort of try and run and break even?
Yeah, obviously it's got to look at its commercial agenda going forward. Because of COVID, a number of leisure operators are reporting that people have not come back to use their facilities. So there's nothing, again, unique about Livewire.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah, same as me. So you know, Livewire will have to trade in a commercial way within the council as well as outside.
Okay. Well, Stephen, thank you very much as usual. I'd like to wish you a Merry Christmas and hopefully a happy, prosperous and healthy New Year for everyone in Warrington. And I know you're dying to introduce your new friend. You have a prop with you every year. The elf stunner runner, I can see. He's been made redundant out on the corridor there. So we've got a Christmas tree to end proceedings with.
So this is Gary when he had hips. Gary used to do this in Mr. Smith, didn't you, Gary?
Absolutely, I still do it now, Stephen, when I'm at a rock concert.
Thank you, Gary.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks for your support and thanks for everybody on Warrington worldwide for all their comments over the years.